In case it wasn't obvious to you guys, they hate trains. And trains are what I'm going to be going on in this next 3 video part series right after the intro. In case it wasn't obvious, they hate trains. And trains are what I'm going to be going on in this 3 parts video series just after the intro begins. Anyways, let's begin. The day is March 30th, 2021, and my father and I are at Trinidad, Colorado. We are going to board Amtrak's Southwest Chief. Originally, we had planned to do this the previous year, but surprise, surprise, COVID came along, and therefore we had to cancel those plans for that day. So that really sucked, and I felt that all my hard work that I had done at school was wasted. And I seriously thought that I was never going to see this trip day ever come, because by the time Dad and I had canceled our original trip in 2020, July in April had became We're Fucked in April, and then we kinda... crap. And I seriously thought that I was never going to see this day come, because by the time Dad and I had canceled our original trip, July in April became We're Fucked in April. And then we... But it's for a video, Mom! Oh, come on!
You can't change the words!
But I was just exaggerating! It's just an exaggeration! Come on! But by the time... Hush. And I seriously thought that I was never going to see this day ever come, because by the time Dad and I canceled our original trip, July in April had became We're Dead in April. And then... No, wait. And I seriously thought that I was never going to see this day come, because by the time Dad and I had canceled our original trip, July in April had became We're All Going to Die in April. And then most of us kinda lived. But that did not matter, because then it became We're All Going to Die in May, June, July, August, September, October, and so on and so forth until the year finally ended. And before you guys say that I can't take sarcasm seriously, well, after there was a near war, a continent that got hit with fires and, crap. And before you guys say that I can't take sarcasm seriously, after there was a near war between 2 countries, a series of wildfires and floods in Australia, and then a whole pandemic. Did you think that I wasn't going to think that a bunch of neckbeards on Reddit were exaggerating? Well, I think most of you kinda would say that you wouldn't, but my point still stands. That, or I have a severe lack of sanity. Either that, or I have a severe lack of sanity. Anyways, this is Trinidad. This is a stop on Amtrak's Southwest Chief on its 2,200-mile run from Chicago, Illinois to Los Angeles, California. To the west of... To the east of here is Dodge City. Wait. To the east of here is La Junta, Garden City, Dodge City, Kansas City, La Plata, Fort Madison, Iowa, Galesburg, and Chicago. And to the west of here is Raton. No. It's now 12:15 p.m. and the Southwest Chief is finally here. Unfortunately, because of COVID, Amtrak cut all the long-distance trains from daily service to tri-weekly service, and the Southwest Chief was one of them. Also, because of COVID, The Southwest Chief also had a shortened consist. Depending on when you're watching this, said consist shortage is still going on. But anyways, the locomotives that are leading this train are Amtrak P42 DCs number 201 and 164. 2 years after this trip was made, Amtrak actually repainted number 164 into a Phase 4 heritage livery. But anyways, this is one of the Superliner cars. Amtrak actually ordered nearly 500 of them, 479 to be exact, and a couple of these are sleeper cars. It was like middle school since I last been on an Amtrak train, and this was in 11th grade, so can you like be quiet? Please? Maybe? No? Okay. The grades are as steep as between 3 and 4%, as in the railroad goes up 4 feet for every 100 feet it goes across. The only other railroad grades that have gone as steep or steeper, at least to my knowledge, are Saluda grade, and maybe some others, but I don't remember. As we climbed the grade, we went into the dining car to make a reservation for lunch. Unfortunately, by the time Dad and I had taken our trip, Richard Anderson had killed the traditional dining service on Amtrak, its long-distance trains, and he replaced it with a quote-unquote flexible dining service, which was pretty much pre-packed meals. However, at the time of recording this, Amtrak has made an effort to bring back the traditional dining service, and you will find out in a different video on a different trip that I took later. But for now, you're watching this video, so... As we climbed the pass, we went into the dining car to make a reservation for lunch. Unfortunately, the traditional dining service on Amtrak's long-distance train was killed by that spawn of the devil himself, Richard Anderson. However, at the time of creating this video, Amtrak management changed, and thankfully they are making an effort to bring back traditional dining service on all Amtrak trains, not just for the sleeper car passengers, for the coach passengers as well. Also, as I just said, this track has a lot of jointed rail, and it still had a lot of jointed rail when Dad and I made our original trip. However, because of efforts started between Amtrak, New Mexico, Colorado, and the Federal Department of Transportation, that jointed rail is set to be replaced by new welded rail, which would make the journey smoother and possibly increase the chance for faster speeds, but still, it's going to be removed. As stated, this line still had a lot of jointed rail by the time we made our trip. However, Amtrak, not the FRA. And honestly, I truly never thought I would see this day come, because by the time Dad and I had canceled our original trip, Your Lie in April had became We're Fucked in April. And then we kinda weren't fucked in April. But then there were still months ahead, and it became June, July, August, September, October, and so on, and freaking so forth until the year finally ended. I hope I will never have to see those memes again after making this. And honestly, I didn't really think that I would see this day come ever again, because by the time Dad and I canceled our original trip, Your Lie in April became We're Fucked in April. And then we kinda weren't fucked in April, but there were still like 8 months remaining in that year, and so We're Fucked in April became We're Fucked in May, June, July, August, September, October, and so on and so forth until the year finally ended. I pray to Jesus Christ I will never ever have to see those damn memes again. Ah! Anyways, this is Trinidad, a stop on Amtrak's Southwest Chief on its Anyways, this is Trinidad, a stop on the Southwest Chief's 2,200-mile run from Chicago to Los Angeles. The line between La Junta and Albuquerque on the Southwest Chief is also pretty interesting, and I will tell you about it as the trip goes on. At least, that is as far as my memory serves right now. It could change in a bit. Soon enough, eventually after Wooden's Ranch, we see a sign marking the top of Raton Pass, and eventually we enter the tunnel that goes into said... Eventually, a sign marks the summit of Raton Pass. And near the summit of Raton Pass, while we descended the grade and entered and exited Raton, we had... So just sit back and enjoy as we watch searchlights go by as music plays. My God, why did I say that? Jeez. Here is another semaphore protected sighting, Colmore. Wait a minute. But as we head over to the western end, the semaphores are and still... It was still crappy. Anyways, there used to be semaphores and even a wigwag signal on the western end of the Wagon Mound siding. As we near the top of Glorieta Pass, we passed the last semaphore on Glorieta Pass. This semaphore, like all the others, was removed in November of 2022. Also, this semaphore is on. As we near the summit of Glorieta Pass, we passed the last Glorieta Pass semaphore. This semaphore is probably the most recognizable out of all of the semaphores, if you have watched America by Rail. Here we've made it to Glorieta, the summit of Glorieta Pass. There was once a Civil War battle that occurred here because the Confederate Army was trying to reach the gold and silver reserves in Colorado, but they got stopped at Glorieta and they would have won, but unfortunately their mine train went kablooey, so... No, not their mine train. As we exit Lamy, New Mexico, we see a bit of equipment over there. That is actually owned by the short line, the Santa Fe Southern Railway. The Santa Fe was going to go to its namesake city, but unfortunately, the grades that would have been built would have been a bit too steep, even though I don't know why they couldn't have just resorted to, like, using, loops in that kind of stuff. But anyways, instead of the main line going through Santa Fe, a branch line was built. Interesting enough, this branch line was also used in a Breaking Bad episode where the main characters actually robbed the Santa Fe Southern train. And actually shit. As we exit Lamy, New Mexico, we see some equipment over there. Some of that equipment is actually owned by the short line Santa Fe Southern Railway. The Santa Fe didn't actually go through the Santa Fe, New Mexico, but it actually built a branch line to it because they the line would have, if the main line would have gone through Santa Fe, it would have been a bit steep, probably would have necessitated loops or tunnels or all that. But anyways, the Santa Fe Southern Railway is also a bit interesting in its own right. It actually has excursions in its own right, and actually was included in an episode of Breaking Bad, where the main characters as we head towards Albuquerque, we see a bit of a unique kind of signal sling structure. As we near Devil's Throne, we see the last 2 active semaphores on this rail line that I saw. As we head towards Devil's Throne, we made it to Devil's Throne, and it's a pretty unique structure, but unfortunately because of it, the train has to... Here, we pass the track onto the Santa Fe... Here, we pass the junction This is Las Vegas. Though not the gambling Las Vegas, it is a completely different Las Vegas. A lot more peaceful there too. Anyways, this is also a stop on the Southwest Chief, and there actually used to be a locomotive roundhouse here, but then guess what? Diesels came and they were rendered useless after the diesels replaced the steam locomotives. Also here, there are a few old semaphores and old searchlights that were placed there when they were pulled up from, well, you know, them being replaced, and yeah. Welcome to part 2 of my trip on Amtrak Southwest Chief. Today, we're going from Albuquerque all the way to Los Angeles. We are going to be following the same route as Route 66, which, even though the railroad got there first, it is still a very historic highway. And the railroad goes through many of the cities that Route 66 goes through. Well, at least west of Albuquerque. So, let's check it out. Welcome back to part... No guys, this isn't some sort of twisted joke. I was actually trying to record at night, but unfortunately, cameras are not very good at recording at night, especially when there are no lights around. So, at some point I eventually gave up on trying to record. We eventually went to the dining car and had dinner with one of the flexible dining options. And my dad and I ordered this one pasta with meatballs thing. And I purchased this... We woke up somewhere after Needles, and so we passed through Barstow and Victorville. I took this photo at Barstow, but unfortunately I did not catch any photos from Victorville as I bathed in the sleeper car, one of the sleeper car's bathrooms. Here at Hesperia, there's a camera for virtual railfan, and oh come on, why is the... Here we're going to go down one of the most interesting, steepest, and probably most headache-filled past in... Even so, it will be quite an interesting sight to go by, and I have quite some video recorded, and here we pass a series of cantilever signals. This likely marks the top of the interesting note is that one of the major kinds of trains you'll see on the Southern Transcon is intermodal traffic, mainly from the twin ports of LA and Long Beach. Intermodal is like really common on the BNSF, and it was they actually had contracts for a lot. Those cars right there are actually piggyback cars. they have truck containers on top of them. They are right there. We pass under a line for Metrolink's line to here. We go under the Union Pacific's line. There are a lot of highways in Los Angeles because of the 1960s and, you know, the well, I didn't exactly record the arrival into Fullerton. I was recording something that my dad and blah blah! Like all stations that are termini on Amtrak, this one, like a lot of stations that are termini on Amtrak, this station, because there aren't any light rails we eventually got onto one of the LACMTA subway lines all the way from Los Angeles Union Station to... While I did not record the entire trip, I did take a photo of this one thing that was at the Santa Monica station at the end of the line. The Pacific Electric Railway was a massive railway that once spanned almost the entire Los Angeles system. But unfortunately, because of the 1950s and because at one point buses actually became cheaper to operate than trains, all of those train lines that were operated by the Pacific Electric disappeared and became history. Fortunately, it looks like Los Angeles at least is going to revive a lot of those lines. Hopefully. Depends on what happens. Anyways, without further ado, we're at the end of the line here, and we're gonna finish up today's trip right here. However, in recent times, LACMTA's light rail and subway system has been expanding to a lot of areas that were once served by the Pacific Electric Railway. Hopefully in the future, many Los Angeles people won't need to use their cars too much, as there will be a lot more trains and to a lot more destinations. Hopefully anyways. At this point, we're at the end of our second part, and so we're gonna end here. Next time, it's on to the Coast Starlight, and soon enough, Caltrain. Hello everybody, we are now on our Hello everybody, this is now video 3 of the video series where we take that locomotive right there was one of Amtrak's many that locomotive there is a Charger locomotive. That there is a yard where Metrolink serves and maintains a lot of its equipment. There are also a couple of older F59PHs and the newer locomotives too. Here is the site of the This area here is the site of the 2005 Glendale train crash. 11 people were killed when Juan Manuel Alvarez parked his car onto the tracks and a Metrolink train hit it. He is in prison without the survive a train wreck, only to be killed in another part, not necessarily the train crash itself. Because there was a train on one interesting note is that a lot of the crossings one train video that I constantly remember watching of a lot as a kid actually took place at this crossing, and it was of a video where Amtrak's Pacific Surfliner crashed into a tractor trailer and obliterated the trailer, but most of the train was okay. That video is also part of a Destroyed in Seconds episode. That track over there goes to... We're going by the coast. while along the coast, we eventually had lunch. My dad let's look at the front head-end locomotives, shall we? The two locomotives are Amtrak P42 DCs 169 and 170. Both of them were built in 2001. However, they are set to be replaced by ALC 42 fellas who masturbate all day long as time goes on. Yeah, as mentioned, there is often a lot of homeless people that live near the tracks. So, yeah, as mentioned earlier, I got frustrated by the fact that there were a lot of homeless people by the tracks, and the fact that nowadays people from my generation have to fix the problems of previous generations. As we approached San Jose, we started getting into Caltrain territory near Gilroy. Unfortunately, it was starting to get dark at this time, and so I was kind of trying to get as much as I could before, you couldn't see jack crap. And we soon enough got into San Jose at around 9. There was this passenger in front of me who... We got into San Jose at around like 9:18 p.m. San Jose is actually the biggest city in the Silicon Valley. Oh, can you guys please stop? Let's skip over a bit. After a few minutes, we eventually departed from San Jose and... Excuse me. We were going to... Yeah, apparently some dimwit decided to build an oil refinery right next to the tracks in an urban area. What could possibly go wrong with that? And well, it turned out, something went wrong. And we were stopped until the firefighters had to douse the fire enough for us to proceed. And it would have been a lot worse if the engineer hadn't negotiated with the chief. Finally, though, we were able to start off and head to Oakland Station. And in a move that I am about 40 or 50... blah! We would eventually wait a bit for an Uber to... One thing... Oh, come on! You had to scream at that exact moment? While I don't believe that I'll be able to do justice for what the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters were, I'll just save a bit of a short story. Basically, it was formed because the Pullman Company employed a lot of black people. There was a lot of discrimination in America because pre-1960s, it's also because a lot of these I don't think I'll be able to do justice for what the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters did, but long story short, it was a whole series of things relating to pay and racism and whatnot, especially the fact that a lot of the Pullman Company porters were black. But yeah, this organization was Still, it is pretty interesting seeing what these guys did when it was the glorious days of... Still, it is interesting knowing about this and the fact that there was this union that supported a crucial worker during the golden age of railroading, because without porters, there wouldn't be that many passenger trains. Caltrain is one of many of the rail systems around the Bay Area. There's also BART, which is a subway system that goes between San Fran and Oakland and San Jose. There's ACE that goes from San Jose to, I believe, hang on a sec. That structure right there is That structure right there is for a support for catenary. I know you don't... And that we should build other high-speed rail, and... The line that we are currently on right now is known as the Bay Shore Cutoff. The original line actually went a little more inland to the peninsula, and so this cutoff that was built was created to shave off several minutes of time as well as decrease maintenance. The original line went more inland to the peninsula, so this cutoff was built in 1907. Part of the original 1870 line now makes up one of the BART system's routes. Part of the original BART net, a little bit south of the South San Francisco station, is where we rejoined the original line that the Southern Pacific built all the way back in the 1870s. Caltrain does have a variety of trains such as locals and reversible locals as well as express trains, but Caltrain has a variety of trains that go to and from the 1863 Ocean View line is now part of the 1863 line is now part of the BART system. Part of the 1863 line is now used for BART. The original line, as shown earlier, was built in 1863 and was at one point called the Ocean View line. California is known for being expensive. Actually, come to think of it, I think it has been expensive for years way before like the 2000s. While I clearly do not live in California myself, from what I've heard from somebody online, you kind of have to be like a borderline millionaire to live in San Fran. This here is Redwood City. We'll come back to here in a little bit. This is Redwood City. Habla silencio, por favor! And the issue is mainly caused by, like, lack of supply, and this issue is caused because of zoning laws, the lack of housing, high rent prices, and here at Santa Clara, we can Ace commuter trains and the Capital Corridor Amtrak service also stop at. Here we encounter Caltrain's commuter rail maintenance facility. This facility maintains Caltrain's fleet of bi-level cars as well as the MP40s as well as their F40PHs. Eventually in the future, this facility will service the Stadler Kisses that Caltrain is purchasing. Why are we getting off here? Let me tell you a story. Many years when Dad would constantly travel for meetings because of his job, at one point he went to San Francisco and he went with one of his friends to the Redwood station, and he decided to record some of the trains that were there. And when I saw those recordings of those trains, I immediately wanted to ride the Caltrain. A northbound Caltrain train with the Bombard. We soon took the BART to... those are Caltrain electrification wires. I believe that even though we aren't on Caltrain anymore, I still decided to take a little bit of extra footage from the Caltrain, because now Caltrain will be slightly more visible because of the wires. And soon enough, we took the short train from the Terminal B to ground transportation. Back in 2010, or if you're an anti-brony, 0BGR/0BC or 0 before everything got ruined and 0 before cancer, or if you're an Angel Beats fan, 0BP or 0 before pain. I don't know how that have to happen. Why? But while we wait for the train, let's give a little bit of history of what this station is like, shall we? Union Station was built in 1881 to serve Union Station was built in 1881. However, in the last 50 years, with support from Denver and has its Rockies to the Red Rocks train start in this area. Though at the time it was only sleeper car exclusive. This is Amtrak's 3-course dining menu. I had the salad, the steak, and the chocolate torte. This is the 3-course dinner menu. I had the salad, steak, and the torte. Actually, I don't think that's true. Does anybody in the comments know? Oh, for God's sake. While it is pretty dark, the area here that we're passing by is the National Western Complex. The area is actually the Denver... Also, if you happen to be in January at Denver, hey, does anybody know where that track goes? I then went back into the coach car we were staying in. I then went back into the sleeper car we were staying in before. Those tracks right there are a former Milwaukee Road line that is now owned by Canadian Pacific. While the station hasn't changed much Burlington, Iowa is the last stop before we enter into Chicago. If you see a line that comes closer and closer to us, there's also a small museum at Galesburg that has CB&Q 464 number 1006. The AT&SF actually had its own separate station at Galesburg, but that was demolished after Amtrak rerouted the Southwest Chief onto the line of the Zephyr. Metros. Eventually, though, we made it to the Chicago yard. Next time, we take rides on the CTA and Metra. Next time, we ride the CTA and Metra and visit the great train layout. Thank you all for watching, and I'll hope you have a good day. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day. As for the rest of the series, this will continue on next week. Even so, thank you for watching this video, and until next time, have a good day. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day. As for the rest of you guys, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Hello everybody, and welcome to Chicago. Hello everybody, and welcome to Chicago. We're at the Quincy L station, and we're currently waiting for a Purple Line train to take us from... Unfortunately though, we could not walk the whole way without getting shot. And the footage you're looking at right now is just some of the footage where it wasn't of us getting shot. The Millennium Station is also a terminus for the Chicago South Shore, or as the MFs you'd see on r/religious fruitcakes would say, the Museum of Satanism. Come on, you religious fruitcakes, you're the reason atheists exist! And this is coming from a Catholic! Also in the museum were a few displays of farming and a couple of John Deere equipment. This is also one of only 3 New York Central locomotives, to my knowledge at least, that have been preserved. So you 8 to 12-year-old 5629 fans who say that Metra is evil because they hate steam trains, let me know. So all of you 8 to 12-year-old GTW 5629 fans who say that Metra is evil because they hate steam locomotives, Let me tell you somebody who truly does hate steam locomotives, Alfred E. Perlman. And here is how I first... Mom, can you please stay silent? A few years ago, I saw this DVD from this... Coming into the station is said good line, hard line, and bread line. Coming into the station is said good line, fine line, hard line, and bread line that I saw a train of earlier. That South Shoreline train though won't go the full way as there at the time was still construction going on. However, that train will only go as far as either Gary or Hammond because past that, they're double tracking the line into Michigan City, Indiana. So that'll be under construction until they finish it, which won't be until at least 2024. So that train will terminate there, where passengers will take buses. Sometime later, we went on the L line to go to a pizza place. After getting off at Quincy, we would soon head to Union Station. But there were also a couple of World War II posters at the display as well. That there is Ogleville Station. It used to be the Chicago and Northwestern's terminal for its passenger trains, but nowadays only Metra uses that terminal. But who knows? Maybe there will be some more railroads that use Ogleville in the future. Also, the line that carries Amtrak's Empire Builder and Hiawatha service, as well as Metra's Milwaukee Road line trains, had disappeared well into the buildings before it goes under these tracks. Hello everybody, and welcome to Chicago's Union Station. We would be boarding by this point, but the train's late. Hello everybody, and welcome to Chicago's Union Station. We would have been boarding by this point, but the train's late. Yeah, apparently there was probably an issue with one of the locomotives for the train that delayed us from departing here on time. Here, we've made it to our first stop, Naperville, and as mentioned before, this is the spot where a fatal crash in 1947 killed a few people and eventually resulted in all the passenger trains having to be limited to 79 miles per hour unless they had expensive technology. Whoever made that decision, I hate you and I hope to find you in hell. Well, at least I got the CN units. Soon enough though, we left the Chicago suburbs behind and we would go through plains after plains. Eventually though, we left the Chicago suburbs behind and in front of us would be mile after mile of empty plains. We will soon leave but soon enough, the eastbound Zephyr passed by with locomotives 136. Soon enough though, we crossed the Mississippi River into Burlington, Iowa, and we were also at lunch too. 46 was also decorated with a Serving America for 50 years typing. Amtrak 46 is also a 50th anniversary unit because this does take a while, let me just cut to the chase here, shall I? Finally, we would make it to Omaha, Nebraska, but my camera's phone space ran out. At last, 5 days of traveling later, and 2 hours behind schedule, we rode on Metra, and I rode behind the Amtrak Special Unit. When I graduated from high school in May of 2022, there was a Colorado Crossings event going on. That right there is the iconic Delhi wigwag. It was installed along the Santa Fe's northern passenger line, and so yeah, just like that there was 104 days in summer vacation, that the Japanese used katanas prior to them receiving guns, and that the K-37s being converted from standard gauge to narrow gauge is also another lie that you've been told by the council. Yep, just like the fact. Here's a view from my phone. I was recording double, but I don't think that's heist right there. Maybe it could be heist, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I do not think that's heist. Testing, 1 2 1 2. Also, here is another RGS locomotive and a galloping goose car. I'll explain more about these two later, but they were running the round trips around the museum at the time. Number 20 and the goose would finish its runs for the day, and after 4, we would see number 491 haul a freight train around the loop. The goose would also be put away too. Inside the roundhouse was a replica of one of the Challengers that the Rio Grande operated, as well as a few others. I honestly think that... Before we go on to the train, I would like to show you some footage that was taken from my dad. I'm the guy with the camera strap in the black shirt. Soon enough, the runs over the loops finish. Soon enough, the loops over the finish. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Not to be too overshadowed, there's also a CB&Q Northern over there that's numbered 5629. You should honestly hear about and the way that it got here was that it was ding-dong ditched by the CB&Q, so you should definitely hear about that story. I'll give a link in the description below. Thank you for watching my video on the Colorado Crossings event from 2022. I couldn't make it to the 2023 one, but even so, thank you for watching, and have a good day. You know, given that I've already seen the big boy twice at that point, you'd think that I wouldn't see it. Well, I did have the option to decide not to see it. You know what? Hello everybody. So, we got a couple of questions. And so, But let me put up the intro before we do this, shall we? So even though I'll probably be fresh out of college and with a job, if not with a partner and family by the time the front range passenger rail is finished, that will still be exciting to see and build and watch be built. So, well, I'm most likely going to be fresh out of college and likely with a job and living life without boundaries, maybe have a partner, if not family, by the time front range passenger rail finishes. It'll still be exciting to see it be built and completed. Have I or do I plan to ride the Rocky Mountaineer from Denver to Moab? Eventually, assuming I get the money and assuming I, do something amazing that could, impress my parents enough to award me with something like that, or whatever. Oh, dang it, wrong mic. I'd definitely recommend Galaxy Express 91099 and Galaxy Railways. And maybe if you aren't too emotional, you can watch when Yamatora comes back. As for Rail Romanesque, I'll have to watch it myself and see and decide for myself if it's a good show. And for Rail Wars, it would pretty much have your typical anime shenanigans, so Galaxy, but I wouldn't mind any rail expansion. Train good. That's all I have. Shit, wrong. Murder Stuff 113 asked, do I like the Indian Pacific? Well, I have heard about the Indian Pacific before, and I think it's a cool train. Even though I don't... Since I don't have a Train Z game yet, Train Simulator, but if I ever do get Train Simulator, then... No, wait. Do I have a model railroad? If not, do I plan on making one in the future? I had a model railroad, though it was pretty much your basic loop. And then one day, the train I had probably short-circuited, and my dad and I weren't able to figure out how to get back up and running again. But I still hope that maybe one day I could take out those trains that are in storage and make a brand new model railroad layout. But those are my... Do I like anything under the... Shit. Apart from trains, I like airplanes. I like anime. I like video games. Typical teenager, colleger stuff. Apart from trains, I like planes. I like anime, even though there are some people who think that I shouldn't be liking anime. I also like anime too, and I like video games. If you hadn't seen my channel before until recently. Left 4 Dead 2 and Lego City Left 4 Dead 2 and Lego City Undercover are probably my favorites on Steam and the Nintendo Switch respectively. I really like video games. Left 4 Dead 2 and Lego City Undercover are probably some of my I think my favorite show or series is Mayday, because it honestly has a lot of information related to air crashes and shows what changes have been made because of said air crash and how they're still applied today. And even though it does show a lot of accidents from airliners where a lot of people did die, there are actually plenty of Mayday episodes where everyone lived, and I honestly feel like those are my favorite ones, because it's always a good sight to hear everybody survive a plane incident. What's my favorite railway/railroad? BNSF. And a lot of MSTS makers as well as NNW 1218 fan. Other inspiration include many MSTS and Train Z YouTubers. And come on! Hello everybody. Today, the day is March 12th, 2023, and I'm in El Paso, Texas. We're gonna be taking Amtrak Sunset Limited from here to Tucson, and it'll be nighttime by the time we get to Tucson. Come on! We'll be taking it from here to Tucson, though it will be... We'll be taking the train from here to Tucson, though it will be nighttime by the time we get to Tucson. But first, let's see, before we get on the train, let's see what happened before this. So, when we got to El Paso, Texas, we would have been on time, but remember in a previous video where I said I will be traveling alone this time, so unfortunately there won't be another person with me to give some annoy me or anything, but that won't be too much of a problem. I'll be riding in coach and definitely filming a lot on the cat. I'll be traveling in coach since I won't have to go too far into the night and because it was cheaper. I then boarded the train and I would be off. In Amtrak's most recent version of its 2035 map, there is a plan to bring an Amtrak train through Nuevo Laredo and into Monterrey, New Mexico. However, they're not too weird. We crossed over the BNSF line that goes into El Paso. And also, as we cross over the bridge, and we cross the Rio Grande River, and we go into New Mexico. Soon enough, we entered into the Union Pacific Yard. So, since the audio of the camera would get muffled out, here's what the conductor explained. The facility here is the Union Pacific lets Amtrak use this facility for its Sunset Limited trains to refuel. And right now, we were going to be refueling so that it can make a longer journey. Despite that, I started to go into the... But while we're here, let me talk about Deming, shall I? While we're at Deming, soon enough, I went into the dining car for... This was part of the dinner that I got. This is some of the dinner that I got. Somebody did say that it didn't look very appetizing, but I honestly believe that it's a step up from the flexible dining service that Amtrak offered beforehand. Another freight train passes us by. You know, as much as people say that Amtrak really suffers because most of the track it runs over is under ownership of privately held freight companies and that are mostly on the stock market, there's some odd feeling that I have whenever I'm on a train that's the only passenger train on that track. It just has a weird feeling that I can't really describe. Something so odd. Or that's just me. At approximately 8:47 Tucson time, we made it into Tucson. At around 8:47 in the evening, we arrived at Tucson. Tucson is a city of about 1 million people, and this station is the station that Amtrak, and this is the biggest city in Arizona that Amtrak serves. Also, remember when I said that Tucson is the largest city that Amtrak serves and that Amtrak made a grant application for some long-distance projects earlier? Well, one of those projects that Amtrak submitted a grant application for was for Amtrak Sunset Limited to not only return to Phoenix, but to also become a daily train. Though I highly suggest that if you want to see this really happen, then go bug your local politician, mainly if you're from Arizona. Even so, it would be cool to see Amtrak return to Phoenix, if not have a corridor train between Phoenix and Tucson. So that'll be exciting, but it won't happen without support. Hey guys, sorry if this is going to look like your typical, commentary channel video with the video game in the background and whatever you're talking about in the background, like the likes of, say, Optimus, Pegasus, Avantix, or whatever. But I just want to get this out because what's going on here is really annoying me, and I just want to tell you how annoying, why I believe it's annoying. This is mostly unscripted, so expect to make some errors, okay? So, as of the day I'm recording this, June 30th, 2023, it's the day after my birthday, by the way, it has been Tuesday since an accident in Moore California. In that accident, an Amtrak train was carrying 198 or max passengers shit. So on the 28th of June of 2023, an Amtrak Coast Starlight train carrying about 198 passengers and 13 crew members collided with a truck in Moore Park, California, north of Los Angeles. The train was heading northbound, and likely only made it a few stops before this happened. Thankfully, nobody was killed, but 15 people were injured, and that is a serious issue. But when this incident was talked about on Discord, comments like these kept coming up, and I'm just like, no, what the heck are you saying? Why are you saying these? Why are you saying this? It frustrates me that this was a passenger train. People were involved in this, and there could have been people who could have died, like actually died. And you're happy that a Charger was wrecked? Seriously, what is up with you rail fans? Actually, they're not rail fans, they're foamers. I know a lot of people like to think that the terms rail fans and foamers are the same things, but in terms of something like this, there are a lot of us who believe that if you saw the terms foamers and rail fans and actually knew them well, then the differences would be clear as day. And for me, here is the clear definition of a foamer. Now, about that Charger that's talked about. And there are a lot of people who say that the Charger is going to be scrapped. There are actually a lot of people who actually believe that and are happy of that because, yeah, Charger. But I seriously doubt that the Charger will be scrapped for two reasons. However, I highly doubt that would be true because, for one, that Charger is at most 2 years old at this time, and two, Amtrak pretty much desperately needs a new locomotive because the Genesis were built by a manufacturer that doesn't exist anymore. Sure, it has a successor, but who knows how long they'll be supplying parts to the Genesis for. The only way that the Charger 300 would have likely had be able to be scrapped is if it had as much damage sustained to, say, Amtrak locomotive 819 or WS Dodd locomotive 1402, which were completely totaled. Why would Amtrak immediately want to scrap a locomotive that's 2 years old unless it was completely smashed over like Amtrak 819 or WS Dodd 1402? And in this case, Amtrak 300 is not totaled from, its entire frame. And the intended successor of a locomotive that's already in its 20s and about to become in its 30s. And in this case, Amtrak 300 is not totaled. I mean, look at the photo. Does that look like a totaled locomotive to you? I don't know who started that rumor, but maybe it is a lot of people who actually hate the Chargers, or those who want to see a reaction out of people who hate Charger locomotives. I'm not sure who started that rumor. I got an image from this guy, but maybe that was something started by somebody else. I'm not sure. If it was even a rumor anyways. I don't know if it's a rumor anyways or who started it, but I was shared this image here from this person and I immediately was skeptical. Anyways, if you were a person on that Amtrak train that crashed, I hope that even so, if you were a person on that Amtrak train or if you were injured from the accident, I hope that you are able to recover soon. Anyways, if you were on that Amtrak train, well, I hope that, sorry, I just had to get this out because, well, yeah, there were people involved. I don't really like the rumors going out right now. Even so, all I'm glad is that nobody was killed in this accident. So, let's set the scene. You're at a grill or a bar or a pizza place or whatever, and you get some food or some beer or whatever. Then soon afterwards you start eating your things, or you start buying some things, and then all of a sudden you hear a horn outside of the store or whatever. And as you go outside, so let's set the scene. You're in Fort Collins, Colorado, and you go to some sort of restaurant or go to a shop or something to do whatever you had to do. Then you start doing and then until all of a sudden you hear a horn outside.